Judgment Day. You won't believe what happened next. The stench of disinfectant couldn't mask the city's perpetual decay. It clung to everything: my clothes, my skin, the inside of my nostrils. The announcer's voice, smooth and synthetic, droned from every speaker. Judgment Day embraced the opportunity. The system provides opportunity, that's rich. I hefted another overflowing bin. Rotting food, shattered synth glass, bio waste, the usual cocktail. 20 years I'd been doing this. 20 years of hauling garbage for the system, and all I had to show for it was a bad back and annoying emptiness. Sarah hated my job. You're enabling them, Elias, she'd scream, her voice raw with frustration. You're part of the machine. She wasn't wrong, not really. But what choice did I have? Someone had to clean up the mess. Another flash, not a physical flash, but a jolt behind my eyes, a fleeting image of something. A sterile white room, a woman screaming, the acrid smell of ozone. It vanished as quickly as it came, leaving me sweating and disoriented. These had been happening more frequently lately. You all right, Thorne? Benny asked, his brow furrowed with concern. He was the closest thing I had to a friend on the crew. Just a little dizzy, I mumbled, wiping my forehead with a grime-stained glove. Too much recycled air, probably. Benny chuckled, but his eyes held a hint of worry. Everyone was on edge this week. Judgment Day was looming. That night, the tension in our tiny apartment felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah was hunched over her datapad, her fingers flying across the screen. She was always buried in something: encrypted files, dissident forums, anything that could stick a thorn in the system's side. What are you working on? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Nothing that concerns you, Elias, she snapped, not even looking up. It's almost Judgment Day, Sarah. Can't you just lay low for once? She finally looked at me, her eyes blazing with defiance. Lay low? While they decide who gets to live and who gets processed. I'm trying to find out what the hell is really going on. Processed. That's what they called it. What happened to the unworthy? No one knew exactly what it entailed, but the rumors were enough to keep everyone in line. The announcer's voice echoed through the thin walls. Judgment Day, ensure your contribution. Uphold the principles of the system. The next morning, the list was posted. A holographic projection shimmered in the town square, displaying the names of those selected for judgment. People huddled around it, their faces a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. I didn't want to look. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to. My heart stopped. Sarah Thorne. My daughter's name glowed ominously on the list. The world tilted. The screams of the crowd faded into a distant hum. All I could see was her name. That night, I found her holed up in her room packing a bag. She looked pale but determined. I'm not going to let them take me, Elias, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I'm going to disappear. Disappear? Where are you going to go? They'll find you, maybe, but I'm not going to just stand there and wait to be processed. I wanted to argue, to plead with her to stay, but I knew it was pointless. She was her mother's daughter, stubborn, fearless, and utterly convinced she was right. Then, I saw it. A small metal device no bigger than my thumb hidden in her palm. What's that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It's a data scrambler, she said. It'll wipe my identity from the system's database. That's illegal, Sarah. So is deciding who gets to live and die, Elias. I couldn't meet her gaze. I knew she was right. But the consequences, look, she said, softening her tone. I know you don't approve, but this is my life. I have to do this. I sighed. Just be careful. She smiled, a small, sad smile. I will, but I knew she wouldn't. Caution wasn't in her nature. After she left, I couldn't sleep. The flashbacks were getting worse, more vivid. I saw the white room, the woman my mother strapped to a table, her eyes wide with terror, and then something else. Something I couldn't quite grasp. A dark shape, a swirling vortex of energy. I had to do something. I couldn't just let them take her. I went to see old man Hemlock. He lived in a crumbling tenement on the edge of the city, a place the system had long forgotten. He was rumored to be touched by the judgment, whatever that meant. People said he was crazy, but I had a feeling he knew more than he let on. He answered the door, his eyes rheumy and unfocused. He smelled of dust and decay. What do you want, Thorne? He croaked, his voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. I need your help, I said. My daughter. She's been selected for judgment. Hemlock stared at me for a long moment, his eyes seeming to bore into my soul. The system takes what it wants, he said finally. Always has, always will. But what is it really? The judgment? What do they do to them? Hemlock's face twisted into a grimace. They steal their essence, he whispered. They drain their life force. They use it to fuel something else. Fuel what? The system needs power, Thorn, power beyond your comprehension, and it feeds on the souls of the unworthy. I shuddered. It sounded insane, but somehow it felt right. It resonated with the fragmented memories that haunted me. Is there anything I can do? I asked, my voice desperate. Hemlock shook his head. The system is all-powerful. Resistance is futile. But there has to be something. Hemlock hesitated, then reached into a dusty box and pulled out a small, tarnished key. This, he said, handing it to me. This unlocks a door to the past, a door to the truth. What kind of door? A door to the beginning, Thorn, to the place where it all started. He wouldn't say anything more. He just stared at me with those unsettling eyes, until I finally turned and left. The key was cold in my hand. It felt heavy, like it weighed a ton. I spent the next day trying to figure out what the key unlocked. I went through old city records, crumbling archives, anything I could find. I was risking everything, but I didn't care. I had to save Sarah. That afternoon, Agent Davies showed up at my apartment. He was a sleek, efficient man in a black uniform, his eyes cold and devoid of emotion. He was the system's enforcer, the man who made sure everyone stayed in line. Elias Thorn, he said, his voice smooth and menacing. We need to have a little chat. About what? I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. About your daughter, Sarah Thorn, and her unauthorized activities. My heart sank, they knew. She's just a kid, I said. She doesn't mean any harm. Davies smiled, a chilling, mirthless smile. Harm is irrelevant, Thorn. Order is paramount. And Sarah Thorn is a threat to order. He paused, then leaned in close, his eyes boring into mine. I understand you're scheduled for sanitation duty at Sector 7 tomorrow. Is that correct? I nodded. Sector 7 was where the judgment facility was located. Consider this a warning, Thorn, Davies said. Do not interfere. Let the system do its work, or you will face the consequences. He left, leaving me trembling with fear and rage. I knew I couldn't let them take her. I had to do something, anything. That night, I finally figured out what the key unlocked. It was a storage facility hidden beneath the old city archives, a place the system had tried to erase from history. Inside, I found rows and rows of old files, dusty computers, and forgotten technology. It was like stepping back in time. I started searching, sifting through the mountains of data. And then I found it. A file labeled Project Genesis. It was a detailed account of the system's early experiments, its attempts to harness human consciousness for its own purposes. It described the creation of the judgment process, the technology used to extract life force from the unworthy. And then I saw it, a picture of my mother strapped to a table, her eyes wide with terror. The flashbacks flooded my mind, clearer than ever before. I saw the white room, the ozone smell, the dark shape swirling above her. And then, I saw what happened next. My mother didn't just die, she transformed. Her body twisted and contorted, her skin turning gray and leathery. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. She became something else, something monstrous. The system hadn't just killed her, it had turned her into a weapon. I understood now. The judgment wasn't about selecting the worthy. It was about creating soldiers. Bioengineered weapons controlled by the system. And Sarah, they were going to do the same to Sarah. I had to stop them. I grabbed the key, the data scrambler Sarah had left behind, and headed for Sector 7. Judgment Day. The facility was a sprawling complex of steel and concrete, surrounded by armed guards. The air crackled with energy. I used my sanitation access card to get inside, my heart pounding in my chest. I navigated the maze of corridors, avoiding the watchful eyes of the Enforcer Corps troopers. Finally, I reached the judgment chamber. It was a vast, sterile room filled with advanced technology. In the center, a platform held a single chair. Sarah was strapped to the chair, her eyes closed. A network of wires and tubes connected her to a massive machine. Agent Davies stood beside her, his face impassive. You're too late, Thorn, he said, his voice cold. The process has already begun. Let her go, Davies, I said, my voice trembling with rage. She is serving the system. Thorn, she is contributing to the greater good. She's my daughter, Davies shrugged. Sentiment is irrelevant. I lunged at him, tackling him to the ground. We wrestled, punching and kicking, our bodies slamming against the metal floor. He was stronger than me, more skilled. But I was fueled by desperation, by the memory of my mother, by the need to save Sarah. I managed to grab his stun baton and slammed it against his head. He crumpled to the floor, unconscious. I ran to Sarah, frantically trying to disconnect her from the machine. but it was too late. The machine was already humming, drawing energy from her body. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at me, her eyes filled with confusion and terror. "Elias," whispered, "what's happening?" "I'm going to get you out of here, Sarah," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "Just hold on." But then something happened. The machine began to overload. Sparks flew, wires snapped, and the room filled with a blinding light. The announcer's voice, distorted and panicked, blared from the speaker's system failure, containment breach imminent. The platform Sarah was strapped to began to shake violently. And then it exploded. I was thrown backwards, slamming against the wall. When I opened my eyes, the judgment chamber was in chaos. The machine was destroyed, the lights were flickering, and the air was thick with smoke and debris. And Sarah, she was gone. I staggered to my feet, searching for her, and then I saw her. She was standing in the center of the room, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Her skin was pale and translucent. Her body was surrounded by a swirling vortex of energy. She looked different, powerful. "Sarah," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She turned to me, her eyes devoid of recognition. "I am not Sarah," she said, her voice cold and alien. "I am the system." And then she unleashed a wave of energy that ripped through the facility, tearing apart metal and concrete. The Enforcer Corps troopers were vaporized in an instant. The entire complex began to crumble. I knew then that I had made a terrible mistake. I had saved Sarah from the judgment, but I had unleashed something far more dangerous, something that could destroy everything. I stumbled out of the facility into the chaotic streets of the city. The people were rioting, looting, fighting. The system was crumbling, but the chaos was even worse. I knew I had to do something. I had to find a way to stop Sarah, to contain the monster I had unleashed, but I didn't know how. I made my way back to Old Man Hemlock's tenement. I needed his help. But when I got there, the door was open, the apartment was empty. Hemlock was gone. I found a note on the floor, written in his shaky handwriting. "It has begun, Thorn. The gate is open. There is no turning back." I slumped against the wall, despair washing over me. It was over. The system was gone, but something even worse had taken its place. I walked through the ruined city, the announcer's distorted voice echoing in my ears. The message was different now, twisted and malevolent, phase 2 commencing.